Matthew chapter 14. All right, I have a really good question for you. Here it is. Have you ever made a bad decision? I don't know about you, but there are times in my life I look back on and say, wow, how in the world did I choose to go that direction? And you know what? In Matthew chapter 14, we're going to engage an individual named Herod. And Herod here is actually going to capture John the Baptist and ultimately sign the death sentence for the beheading of John the Baptist. And in this passage, it teaches us some of the traits to making a bad decision. So let me just ask this question today as you think about it. Have you made a bad decision? And if so, do you see how these traits played a role? So let's just spend a few minutes to see some of the traits that stick out on how to make a bad decision. I think trait one is this: when we have unchecked fear. When we have unchecked fear going on in our lives, we will fall prey to the temptation to make a bad decision, for the moment of what we see may be a reprieve from the fear that is before us. And in this case, it tells us that Herod, he feared the crowd. And so we recognize that he had this unchecked fear, and so that's going to lead him and push him to this decision to have John the Baptist put to death. We recognize also the experience of temptation. Temptation has a way of making us make a bad decision, or at least leading us to make a bad decision. And here in the temptation, we know that Herod was influence on his birthday as we see that his sister-in-law had her daughter dance before him, and he was intrigued. It tells us that he was very pleased by that. And so the temptation of this dancer actually influenced him to fall prey to give whatever her request was going to be. And so that aided in this moment of having a bad decision. So notice here the 2 points of how to make a bad decision. 1, unchecked fear. 2, when we fall prey to temptation. Or 3, when you and I become overwhelmed. You know, a sense of overwhelmingness leads us to not think clearly and often to make rash decisions, and they can often be bad decisions. So how do we make bad decisions? Well, that's simple. Again, fear unchecked, temptations, overwhelmed, and then I think when we are seeking for the need of approval. You know, sometimes we will make bad decisions when we are more concerned about what people think than the truth of how we must live. So I don't know about you. Do any of those ring a bell on maybe a time in your life when you made a bad decision? Maybe you're facing a decision you need to make today. If so, may Matthew 14 be a challenge for you, that you will not learn how to make a bad decision, but you will seek to make a good decision based by God's leading. We'll see you next time.